the Cultivate and Keep podcast. I'm
Welcome,
Corey.
everyone, and I'm Jeremy.
Glad we're back on, and hope you guys are doing well. We're going to take this episode to talk about our testimonies, but also we're going to do a little kind of visioneering, talk about our goals. We haven't really talked about where we want to be in years down the road. So yeah, want to just jump in?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So I think I'll be the one that starts.
Get it.
Yeah, I'm ready, I think. All right, so
Wait. Before we talk about our actual testimonies, why don't we talk about what our testimony actually is? So, I mean, I feel like this is one of those like Christianese terms, you know what I mean? Like, oh, what's your testimony? And then it's kind of like, well, I was 12 and I received God in my heart and everything's been handy dandy since then. It's like, okay, well, that's nice.
That sums up my testimony.
Pretty much. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can just skip to me. Mine's pretty cool, actually. Actually, it's not. It's pretty much the same, but not real, actually. But when we talk about a testimony, I think in most terms, we're talking about the story of how you came to the Lord. And I would like to expand that to how you came to the Lord and since you came to the Lord, because your testimony doesn't end when you receive God into your heart. That's sort of the beginning of your journey with God. So we're talking about all that stuff, but we're going to go over our background, the hardship we've been through, God's calling to us, how our lives have changed. And so, I just wanted to point out, it's not just about how you came to God. It's also about what God's done with you since then.
And especially if you are someone that you grew up in a Christian family and your testimony started when you were younger, you've known the Lord for a long time, then I think specifically the way you described the testimony really applies to that. Just kind of your life since knowing God and how you've continued to grow and change.
Yeah. Well, and that's also another thing. Like, I remember feeling when I was 12, 13, 14, even 15, 16, like I don't have a testimony.
Mm-hmm.
When that's not true, because your testimony is how you know the Lord and how you've come to know the Lord, regardless of, you don't need to have murdered 3 people and gone to jail for 15 years and, a light struck you in the middle of the road like it did to Paul. Like, your testimony is your story. It's unique to you, and you never don't have a testimony.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll hit it.
All right.
Let's hear it.
So I was born in San Diego, and when I was 1 year old, my family moved to Oregon. And I should say I was born into a pretty big family, so there's 5 kids, and I'm the youngest, the best one, but the youngest one.
The most spoiled.
I don't know about that. I'm self-made, dude. Everything I have is me.
That's right. It's all you.
Just kidding. So when I was 1, we moved to Oregon, and I grew up there, and I lived in Oregon all the way until I was 9 when we moved back. And so I grew up in not like a farm town, but like a really small country
What's it called
town.
Again?
Cottage Grove.
CG,
Oregon.
That's right.
Yeah, from the Trap, the Come Up.
That's right, the Come Up, the ghetto.
So for me, growing up was really different than I think most people that grew up in San Diego or a big city. I mean, when I was 7, I remember riding my bike across town to a friend's house. That was a normal thing that I just did.
And by across town, you mean across the street?
No, it was a huge town, dude.
Oh,
it was so big. So it had 10,000 people, which is really small. So El Cajon right now, I think it's 100,000, maybe 200,000 people.
Yeah, and that's just the armpit of San Diego.
Yeah, so 10,000 is tiny. We had 2 stoplights. Our bowling alley had 4 lanes in it. To give you an idea of how incredibly small it was.
I didn't know that you could measure a city by the number of bowling
lanes.
I just think that it has.
That's important to point out.
Okay.
4 lanes, that is tiny.
That's true. That's really small.
Parkway Bowl has 65 lanes plus another 16 a separate room. So it was crazy how
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so anyway, it was a small town, and that's kind of what I grew up in. Was born into a really good family. Both of my parents, loved the Lord, and they got saved in their early 20s soon after they got married. But when I was born when my dad was 40. So, they had been living a Christian life for 2 decades.
Yeah.
And so I was, brought up in a good family, small town, and my dad owned a landscaping business and still owns to this day. But he owned a company that he started when we lived in San Diego, and so his dream was to always move to a small town. and his dream was to have a business that didn't tie him to the day to day, and he just simply wanted to kind of come and go as he pleased. And so we started the business. It was doing well, and so we moved to Oregon, and after about 8 or 9 years of living there, a few things started happening. So first was our oldest kid, Joanna. She was just graduating high school, and she was ready to move back to San Diego. She didn't like the small town. My other sister, Jenny, was just behind her, 2 years younger, and she was already making plans to move up to Seattle. And also with that, they didn't do well in high school. They kind of rebelled and just they weren't following the Lord, and you can't blame that all on Oregon, a small town, but I think a big part of it was there was simply nothing to do there. And so, there was no future, and then even the present wasn't that great. And so there's that, like a personal family side, then plus my dad's business wasn't doing that great. And so it needed his attention because what was happening is when we first moved, he would fly back to San Diego once a month, and he would stay for about 4 or 5 days, and then that was it. And then the rest of the time he would kind of work from Oregon, but not really, and just it kind of ran on its own. The last year we lived there, he would fly to San Diego Monday mornings, the first flight. I still remember I used to go with my mom to drop him off at the airport. He took the flight that I think left at 5 a.m. is when it left Monday morning.
Jeez.
And then he got home Friday night at midnight was like the schedule. And so he was gone all week long and was basically home like a day and a half or 2 days on the weekend. That was it.
Yeah.
Did that for about a year. And so with that going on and the family stuff, we moved back. And so that's kind of my life that I remember, like really starting in 4th grade when I moved back here. That's kind of what I remember. So at that time, I remember going, so my old school in Oregon, I should say, it was kindergarten through 12th grade. And I think there was maybe 100 kids, like if that. We were all in one big room, and so I came from this
K through 12 was all in one room?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it was crazy.
You were all learning the same thing?
There was a huge room that had like a big sliding dividing wall, and so on one half of that was I think K through probably 8th, and then the other half of the wall was like high school. But I mean, it was still like it was small.
Yeah.
And so I remember we moved back to San Diego, and I remember my first day at school. I remember my dad took me, and I remember like crying as a little boy, like not wanting to go because there was like 200 kids, and it was like an elementary school. And I remember being so like overwhelmed by how big it was.
That's double,
right? And then after like a day or two, I like loved it, and it was great.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that was like my younger years as a kid. It's fun to know, but nothing, there's no meat there. Nothing really happened when I was young.
Yeah.
I would say my testimony parts I'd want to share would be, so in 6th grade, up until that point in my life, I was really outgoing. Like I loved people, loved to be out, loved doing like the adventurous thing, like loved just everything like fun and not normal. I liked.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you even know this about me, but when I was in 6th grade, I like hit this point in my life of becoming extremely fearful and full of anxiety and just being afraid. Like I didn't want to do anything when I hit 6th grade. It was the weirdest thing. Like before that point, like always at friends' house and out doing stuff. And when 6th grade came, I became this shy, quiet, fearful like little boy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and there were things that like kind of contributed to that, but it kind of just came out of nowhere, and that was a huge struggle for me. It was all the way, I would say, 6th grade to like middle to end of 7th grade, and it really, really hindered my life. And it was silly. I mean, even stuff like just going to a friend's house, I didn't want to do, like little stuff. And
okay, well, do you think that any of that had anything to do with puberty? Like just curious. Not
so
like,
originally, yes, no, but. So at first, yes, but the more and more I dove into it, and I would talk about it as being, I think it was like a spiritual, like stronghold in my life. I think it was a fear, like thing in my heart. Johnny Yoa, who was my mentor at the time, and to this day, still is a person of influence. He played a really big part in walking me through that and helping me find freedom and just working through that fear that I had. And so that I mention that because it's actually that has come up in my life many times, even within the last 6 months it's come up. And so I'll share about that, but I wanted to mention it now.
Yeah.
And so there was that, and I would say, my walk with the Lord really, from a young age, I had a hunger for God. At a young age, I simply just wanted to know God. I remember my first encounter with Him was at a fifth grade camp, with Foothills. I remember it was with Ryan Dealing, and we were at like a worship session, and we were sitting there praying, and he had a vision for me, and he shared it with me. And I can't explain it, but I felt the warmth and the presence of God as a little boy in fifth grade. And to this day, I still remember that as being one of the strongest encounters I've had with God. And then I would say again, probably in like eighth grade was when my walk with the Lord became more tangible, more real. I probably from like eighth grade to now in my life, I've had a pretty consistent, almost daily, ongoing relationship with God, and just reading the Word and praying. It started before high school, and it's kind of always continued. So I've had times of it being, weaker, but it's been pretty consistent from that age. And yeah, I mean, I just, from a young age, I felt like I've had a hunger for God and wanted to know Him. And I would say, I'm trying to think, like probably up until this point in my life, like the biggest change in my like course of my life and like knowing the Lord would be when I was a freshman. So I was a really talented basketball player. For those who don't know, all 5'8"
Promising,
of me,
dude.
5'8",
5-star.
I'm a few shades
recruit.
too light. Let's be honest.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm not anyway. But
the talent's not there. Let's just be honest. It has nothing to do with.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not good, but I had a jumper back in the day.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah. You had a good stroke.
And I got bunnies for a little guy.
Yeah, and you did until your knees blew out.
That's true. I got bad knees.
Yeah.
So when I proposed to Connie, my fiance, did I tell you this or no?
Oh yeah.
When I went to get down on one knee, so when I went to propose and get on one knee, like it's like a serious intimate moment, right?
Yeah.
And I'm getting down on one knee, and my left knee just like gives out. It pops, and I just like fall to the ground, completely like tripped. And she just starts like bawling, laughing, and we're just like, "Oh my God!" It was really funny.
That's amazing.
I had to share that.
Moment to remember.
Yeah. So back on track.
I hope that she brings that up at some point. I hope that she like uses that against you.
She probably will.
I hope so. When we have them on here, I hope that she brings it up
for sure. Let's see here. So, okay. So freshman year, so I was playing basketball, and the school that I went to, we had a really good team. I didn't play a lot, but I was still on the team. But like until that point in my life, I had always played basketball, and so what that looked like was, when I wasn't, in the school year, it meant, you play on travel teams, club teams, you're working out, you're just investing time to get better. And so that's what I was doing. Again, I was never like a great player, but I still did the work that it takes to be a part of a team like that. Yeah. And so freshman year, I was on this really good team that went to the state playoffs.
Yep.
And we advanced pretty far, and so I was a part of that. Even though I wasn't playing, I was still. It took up my life basically. And I remember when I was a freshman, at the end of that year, we had like 3 pretty good seniors. And they were all graduating, so it meant the next year I was going to have opportunity to at least get some playing time, right? To be more part of the team. Yeah. Probably wasn't going to happen, but I hoped it would happen.
Yeah.
And my dad really loves basketball, so he really wanted me to play on the team. And so I remember at the end of freshman year, simply just feeling like a stirring in my heart, that the Lord was urging me to consider walking away from that and instead getting involved with ministry. And when we were in high school, that was kind of the thing to do. A lot of dudes that I really liked and respected were pretty involved in ministry. I remember the phrase was, "Oh, I don't play sports, I'm in full-time ministry." That's the common thing everyone said.
We were in high school. It's kind of silly.
And I remember thinking those guys are stupid. I'm never going to do that. And at the end of freshman year, I felt really a strong sense that I needed to do that. And I remember it started for a few reasons. One was I wanted to be involved in leadership. I wanted to do that, but also I wanted to be on a worship team. And I didn't play an instrument, and
that's right.
I didn't play anything, but I'd always loved the drums when I was younger. I always never played, but I would hear a song and I would just start patting my hands, or I would hop behind a drum set and I could play a few beats, and it was just natural. And so I wanted to do that. And at the time, there was a need for drummers at our church. I remember specifically we were short, and so I remember feeling I'm going to do this. And so I remember talking with my dad and kind of telling him, and I remember him like being seriously like disappointed and like and sad. And I have a good dad. He wasn't like, "Oh, you suck, son, for doing ministry," but
right.
it was. I still felt that like pressure. He wanted me to play. I was in a sense letting him down.
Yeah.
And I remember like deciding, okay, like Lord, I'm going to do this. I'm going to. It sounds small and little, but for me it was big. Like giving up a sport that I loved and I put years into to kind of branch out into ministry. And the common advice I got from my dad and many like him would say, you know, you have your whole life for ministry. You only have a 4-year window to do sports. And so I was choosing to not do that. And so, you know, so a few things I want to share with that. First was, so when I decided I was going to do those ministries, I right away started, leadership and joining some small groups. But the second thing was drums. And so I remember I really, really wanted to learn, but my dad wouldn't let me have a drum set at the house because it was too loud.
Oh, yeah.
And so I, at the time, lived...
That tiny little pad.
I, at the time, lived near a family friend of ours that they had a drum kit, and they lived it was like a 2 to 3 minute walk from my house. And so what I used to do was... down the street. And so what I used to do was, and so they had a drum set in their garage there was no Wi-Fi out there. So what I would do is, at my house, I would go on YouTube and just look up like random drum tutorial videos and like lessons. I would watch them, and then I would run to their house and try to remember what I've just heard and try to play it. That's what I did.
That's crazy.
Between just like listening to songs and then like just playing along, and then any chance I had, like I would invite friends over that played guitar and just say, "Hey, play for me. Let me just try to jam with you." Like that's how I learned.
Well, it's funny. I remember.
You probably remember that.
I remember it was like sort of that. I think it was like the beginning of summer after our freshman year, and I was just getting plugged in, and we were kind of just becoming friends.
Yeah.
But I remember being at Spencer's house at their old house in the garage,
jamming out.
Yeah, and I think that I got there and you were already there and you were playing drums, and I was like, "Dang, like that's pretty good." And you were like, "Yeah, like I think I'm gonna get back into it." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." Like thinking in my head, like, he's not gonna get back into it.
It sucks.
Yeah. Well, like you were good, but it was just like kind of like a really casual thing that you said, and I was like, he's probably not gonna go through with it. Yeah. But then.
So that was August. So I remember specifically like August, like I remember the day, I think it was like August 9th is when I like decided I was going to start playing.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I remember that date. And so, I started doing that. And after about a month of doing that, I think my dad saw my like commitment to it. And so he's like, "You know what? You can have the kit here." And so I brought it over. And from that point on, and 3 months later, I auditioned and made the worship team at the church. And I started playing.
That's pretty crazy.
Crazy how fast it was. And I honestly tell people like, I know I have like a natural talent, but I really do think it was simply just the Lord, like anointing. This is weird. I used to pray over my drum set. I remember that.
Really?
It was in my room. Yep. I would lay hands on it. And I would circle it. I would walk in circles around it and pray. It was weird. Like I really felt a weight. Like I really needed to do this. How I felt. And I did not learn the drums for the purpose of like sounding cool and being like in a band. Like I simply wanted to do worship. And even to this day, like I think I'm good. Like I know how to play, but I've really never like advanced and gotten crazy. Like I just play simple and I try to play with passion.
Worship,
yeah,
really.
that's literally how I play to this day. And it's because I just felt so strongly like that it was a calling in me. And so there's that part of the ministry, and then just nothing crazy with like leadership in small groups, but I just simply felt fulfilled, and I loved like the ministry that I did. And so that's kind of that story. And fast forward. Oh, sorry, I had to burp.
Excuse you. Disgusting. I hope no one heard that.
I hope they did. So fast forward senior year of high school, and I remember it was like near it was our last semester, and it was probably in like let's say like April or May maybe. And I remember driving to small group on a Thursday night, and I was in a Chevy Prism on Washington Street.
Oh, I forgot about the Prism.
Whip, dude. Oh, and so I remember driving in my car, and I was windows down, sun was like going down. It was beautiful night, and just driving, listening to worship music, and just thinking about my life. And I had this moment of like thinking, like literally in my life to this day is everything that I envisioned and wanted when I was a freshman. Is everything that I envisioned and wanted and more. Yeah. And it was like such like a warm, like fulfilling, just satisfying moment of my life. That like I broke down in tears. Like this film's like so overwhelmed. Like, wow, this is exactly what I wanted. Yeah. It's more than that. And I remember thinking like, God, I'm so happy that I chose to pursue these ministries. And I mean, like, at that point in my life, like my life was literally like ministry. I would go to school, hang out with friends, and everything I did was like worship. I was like in a band at that point, and we were just recording like a new album. Like it was then at my church, like I was always playing. Like everything that I was doing was like music and leadership, and it was just great. And so it was a cool time.
Yeah.
And so that was when I was 18. I'm almost 24 now, and you know, I still play drums. I play every other Sunday at church. I play on every other Thursday night for the college group age people, and I'm still involved with leadership and small groups. And I lead a freshman group of high school boys, and that's fun.
And you've led one small group before then?
No, well,
two.
I led our high school small group. We led together.
Oh yeah.
And then I've led two other groups. Yes.
2 others?
Yeah.
What?
Mm-hmm.
How?
When we were in high school, I led ours with you, and then I also led another group, Miles Kiefer,
all
those boys, and then now I do another one.
Oh, and okay, now this is the second.
I'm sorry, this is the second.
Yeah,
group,
that you're an adult leader of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and yeah, I mean, so that, you know, and I think of my life the last like 4 years, like so since high school, and I'm trying to think what stands out, and I think what I would say is like my testimony. I want to say it kind of went like dormant, but it was kind of like just grinding, like doing what I was supposed to do. Like that was kind of it.
A lot of investment.
Yeah, and I feel like the last like 6 months and to a year, like there's been so much going on.
Yeah.
That if I have time, I'll share quickly, I guess.
No, go for it.
Okay,
I was going to say it like that's actually a really good point to share in maybe the next. I don't know how we'll order it, but the next episode that we're going to record on like what it means to cultivate and keep is like you've been sowing so much into your life the last 4 years that it seems like nothing's happened, but now everything's coming into fruition.
Yeah, so I guess I'll share the last 4 years in like a minute, and then I'll share what's going on now. So when I graduated high school, graduated on a Friday. That Monday, I started working full time for the family business.
And you had already been working part time for like 2 years, right?
So I started working when I was a sophomore in high school on my summer. So that's when I started working.
Your sophomore?
Yeah.
Oh
for my dad's landscaping company, working on a route with the guys, wearing boots. It sucked. Corey actually worked a few days.
I worked one weekend. I think I worked a Friday and a Saturday.
And then he quit.
And I was out.
But it was
literally the most exhausted I've ever been in my entire life.
That's funny.
Okay, well, you can continue.
No, I want you to jump in.
I was going to say, like, I have so much respect for you just for the work that you did at LeBon's. Because, I mean, thinking back on it now, so I didn't get my first, like, real job till after high school. Mm-hmm. But thinking about working summers or even just working during the school year and doing landscaping, waking up at, what was it, like 5 o'clock, 5. And then you're off at like 3. But like, that's just...
It sucked.
It sucks.
For $10 an hour. No, I started at $8.25 was my starting pay.
And that's not like under the table either.
Yeah.
So you're literally making chump change for no reason other than it's your dad's business. And
so I had to learn. And
you have to learn the business.
Respect, basically.
Yeah. Like, it's not really even about the money at all.
No, not at all.
And it wasn't like you were required to get a job. It's like you're required to work in the business. And again, not like your dad was this tyrant, but it was like, hey, if you want to learn the business, then this is what you need to do.
So from a young age, I had planned and wanted to like eventually take over his company and, like, you know, work my way up. And so for him, he was like he was all for that, but he wanted me to start at from the bottom and work my way up. So sophomore year I started, and then I did a sophomore, junior, and senior year. Did that, and then also I should add my senior year of high school. I painted my dad's house, and I did that throughout the school year. And
that's
so
right.
Like anytime I had, I would, like, after school I would paint. Early mornings, like before school sometimes. I mean, anytime I had, I would paint. Yeah. I tracked it. I think it took me like 190 hours. I tracked my pay or my hours.
And that's a lot. Like if you're working full time, that's basically like it
took me about a year to do. It was a long time.
Yeah, that's like 6 weeks of full time work just in the middle of the school year.
Yeah, so I did that, and I still do, but I loved to work from a young age. I liked to work. I liked to be busy. It was like what I wanted to do. And so, anyway, I graduated high school on a Friday. Monday started full time. Oh yeah. And I worked in the field with the guys on the route for about 9 months straight after I graduated. And then I spent about 4 or 5 months in the office kind of learning a little bit. And then I moved into account management and sales. And I did that for about 4.5 years, and I actually just stopped about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. But so up until that point, I thought this is what I wanted to do. And I would say over the last year and a half, I knew I wanted more. I knew okay, I don't want to work for someone. I want to do my own thing. Knew that. And then I obviously knew I didn't like landscaping. I was always doing it because the business side of it, but just kind of realized even though this is the family business and that one day I could probably run it, I kind of realized this is still not going to feed what I really want. I want something a bit more entrepreneurial, a bit more that's kind of just mine, I guess. Which is not bad. That's kind of what's in me naturally.
Right.
And so yeah, that's kind of what I'm starting now. But yeah, that's kind of my working testimony. I was gonna say, I'm trying to think what I want to add to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in general, what was it? You said was it 7th grade where you kind of had that change of spirit with Ryan praying for it? Yeah. And so, I mean, since 7th grade, the Lord's been teaching you so much.
That reminds me of one thing I wanted to add. So when I graduated high school, I remember, so I would start work at 6 a.m. and I remember every day I got there at 5:35. It was like clockwork for me. Every day, got there at 5:35, and I would sit in my car and read my Bible. And I just did that every day. And I felt like I did it at that time because I had to. I felt like, God, I so badly don't want to do this. I so badly just dread my days. I need you to fill me is how I felt. And so that is why I every morning spent time with him, because I remember on the days I didn't, I hated my days so bad.
Yeah.
And the work wasn't that bad. I just I don't know, I just didn't want to do it. And so I felt like I needed something more than myself with me to do it. And so spending time with God really helps me every morning prepare for the day. And so, yeah, that was kind of the working testimony. I did want to share so I talked about a bit of fear and a bit of anxiety that I felt when I was younger and how it kind of crept back in my life. And so I've felt that in and out of my life since it came in 7th grade or 6th grade. But I think I felt it pretty intensely about 6 months ago. And I haven't shared this with a lot of people. It's kind of funny I'm sharing it now.
Yeah.
But I'll share more in detail when we talk about the book Wild at Heart. But basically, just this. I always heard people talk about anxiety and fear and all these things. I've kind of felt like, you're dumb. That's not real. Kind of get over yourself, right?
Right.
And reading Wild at Heart, there's a part he talks about men that are posers. And that really convicted me, and I was like, "Wow, I'm a freaking poser." That's what I realized.
I'm a poser. No,
I realized that because I think naturally it's easy for me to be fearful and anxious about the future, and anxious and fearful about things I can't control. Is hard for me. And I think in my heart I just want peace, and I want to go through my life and my days with peace. But I've realized that things I can't control give me anxiety and fear, and so I've had to be really intentional the last 6 months. I'm going through a lot of change at the moment. There's a lot of stuff in my life that's changing, and so it's been easy for me to kind of step back into those feelings of being fearful. And so I've had to just decide I'm not going to let that rule my life. And I've done a few things that have helped. I've met with the counselor from our church a few times. I've gotten prayer multiple times with some people, Michael Cook. Dude, and Danny Essinger.
They're both the best. Yeah,
and it's been humbling, but super helpful. And I've walked out of every session just wow, this is awesome, And so it was good for me to do that, because I think it humbled me a lot, and it kind of said, anyone could do this. And it was kind of funny when I was meeting with Danny and Michael. I think I met with Danny 4 times, and Michael joined us on the 4th time. So it was 4 visits, whatever. And every time when I was walking in or out of his office, someone I knew was coming out, which is kind of funny. Like pastors that I at our church were walking out of his office, So it's kind of funny.
Interesting.
I'm not the only one that sucks.
Yeah. Literally every single one of us.
Yeah. So that was encouraging. But yeah, there's more I could say. I feel like I should let you talk because I could go on and on. But that's kind of the main things I want to share, and I'm sure more will come up as we talk. But that's kind of me.
Okay. So to start off my testimony, I was an accident. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that because I knew
Yes.
that you would say it anyways. So
Corey was not planned
I was not planned. In the best way possible.
by his parents.
Yes, by my parents. So my parents. So I'm. If we go all the way back, I am the youngest of 4 between both of my parents. My dad has 2, and my mom has 1, and then they have 1 with each other, which is me.
Corey, stop wasting time. How
Yes.
old was your
Yes.
brother when you were born?
My oldest brother. Wait.
This is so great.
I think he was 23. Yeah,
Jeez.
he was 23 when I was born. So my dad. So when my parents got together and they met, they actually met because my sister from my dad's side was babysitting my brother from my mom's side because they lived in the same neighborhood. And then they introduced themselves, I think as a joke, actually. I don't think they would admit it, but it was probably as a joke of like, oh, let's see like what they do if they like talk to each other. And then they ended up like being interested in each other. And I think my dad asked my mom out, and then they started dating, and then they got married. And so when they had me, my dad was 53 and my mom was 42, which is not a normal age whatsoever. And I think I've realized this more and more as I've gotten older. And, you know, we're still super young, but like I feel like in the last 2 years, I just realized so many things. That being one of those things where I'm like, holy smokes, my mom was 42
Yeah.
and my dad was still shooting bullets at 53. That is crazy.
Yeah.
So anyways, so they were very old, and so all my siblings are way older than me. So I essentially grew up as a single child. And even actually my cousins, Daniel and Michael, are more like my brothers because my mom would drop me off at their house. I don't know how often. It seemed like every day. And then she would go to work, and then I would spend the whole day with them. We would play in the backyard all day, and then I would go home. And so anyway, so my brother, sister, and my other brother, way older than me, grew up essentially as an only child. My siblings kind of all ended up living with us at some point, and I got a lot of interaction with my nieces and nephews, who are also essentially the same age group as
Corey
me.
was born an uncle.
I was literally born an uncle. My nephew was I think he's 3 years older than me. And even my niece Marissa, shout out to Marissa. What's up? UC
yo.
Berkeley. Shout out to UC Berkeley. We were 6 weeks apart. So when my dad, I think they were telling the story the other day, but when my dad told my brother that they were pregnant, he was like, "No way! Like, we're pregnant." They're like, "What?" He's like, "But wait, what do you mean you're pregnant? And we're pregnant. What do you mean you're pregnant?" Okay, so I grew up with my cousins. We were all homeschooled, and so the reason I'm telling you this is because not to what do you call it? Not to put down homeschoolers or anything, but I really didn't like homeschooling that much, and I didn't admit it or show it that much, although I'm sure I was a brat at some points. But I didn't like homeschooling that much. It was hard being alone and my mom being my teacher and, you know, basically like the only other person I can socialize with because my dad was either working or he was doing something else. And so it sort of instilled in me, and I recognize this now, but I had no idea what was going on back then, but it sort of instilled in me like this really kind of shallow, shy, like sort of just feeling like perpetually alone a little bit. Like I had no one to talk to or be around, or I didn't have any friends until I think I was 9 or 8, I want to say. My cousins were basically my only friends, but you know, we were related, we're family, we're cousins. But that sort of instilled this like, I don't know, like you could call it a lack of self-esteem, a lack of like identity, a lack of confidence, whatever it is. But it was sort of like this, I think this stronghold that the devil started to work in me at a young age. And then I made my first friend at 8 or 9. I forget how old we were. We were immediately best friends, hung out every single day. And then as we got older, he didn't grow up as a Christian, and love his family, great people, but he didn't have the best role models. And so he started kind of quote unquote going the way of the world and getting into, I remember we started getting into, I don't know, like the music we started listening to was like Green Day, and then it was like Guns N' Roses, and then it got even more edgier, and we started getting into like Slipknot, and then Korn, and then it was like all this really whack stuff. And then, we started wearing the DC shoes and all black and the really high socks.
I was Team Etnies.
Oh, dude, I hate Etnies. I feel
Caleb
like
Hoffman was DC, and I was like, dude,
I feel like Etnies are
DC. They were like bulky, and Etnies were like
so
sleek
bulky.
and clean, dude.
That's true, but I feel like Etnies were like the poser kind of brand. Like
I'm
DC
a poser. We've identified that.
That's true.
So, yeah, that makes
then
sense.
that validates
Yeah.
my hypothesis there.
That's cool.
Okay. So anyway, we started kind of going down this road, and we're young kids. Like, I don't blame anything on him. We were both kids. We both had no idea what we were doing, but one thing that led to the next. We were cussing. We were talking about girls together. We were into really bad music. We were playing, edgy video games. And not to sound hard or anything, but I'm just kind of painting a picture of I was slowly and gradually falling away from the Lord at that point. And I didn't have like a strong community. So my parents are both Christians, really strong Christians. They were great parents, but I never got plugged into our church. The church that we went to was at a fantastic church. It's amazing. Great pastor, great youth ministry, and maybe this has to do with maybe some of the stronghold that the devil had inside of me, but I never made any friends at all. So I never got plugged in, never had anyone to talk to, never had any strong Christian friends that I could rely on and sort of lean on for these struggles. So I remember, and I don't want to get into the theology of it. And again, I was a dumb kid. Like, it doesn't really make sense. But I had this fear instilled in me, and it sounds so silly now. It's like, I don't even know if I should talk about it, but I had this fear instilled in me that God was going to come back in like 2012 or 2016, and I wouldn't like have been able to live my life. And I was really afraid that I wouldn't be able to like experience all the good stuff that the world had for me, and I was just going to miss out and go to heaven and, I don't know, live life in heaven, which apparently I didn't think was very good. I think it's going to be fantastic now. But I wanted to experience the world. I wanted to have a girlfriend. I wanted to have sex. I wanted to, like make money. I wanted to live a full life. And so with all this kind of combination of things together, I remember just kind of deciding one day, like, yeah, you know what, this whole God thing, like, I'm just going to put this on hold. Like, just going to kind of put that back, press the pause button, and not going to do that right now. And then that's when I discovered pornography, and that's when I started getting addicted to pornography and started kind of giving into lust. And this is kind of like the perfect storm, like it is for a lot of boys and men. But, I'm just hitting puberty. I'm growing a mustache. Legs growing on my hair, or legs growing my hair.
Corey had a beard in like 8th grade.
Yeah, pretty much. I grew like 8 inches in like a year, or maybe it was like 6, I forget. But but I'm exploring. I'm curious, and so it was just kind of like this pit that I fell in, where I remember feeling just like so lost. Like, who am I anymore? You know what I mean? Like, I felt so attached to pornography and like just the pull of it, and just the pull of lust and sexual desire. And I was depressed. I didn't feel close to my friend anymore, and I didn't have a church to go to, and I didn't like the school that I was going to, and like the friends that I had there were kind of wishy-washy, and I didn't really feel very close to any of them. And I just felt in this like I was in a pit, like I was lost and I was hopeless. And so there was this random point, kind of the first milestone in my walk with God, this random point, I think it was like 7th grade, maybe like early 8th grade, where I remember just laying in bed, and I was just like, you know what, like, I want to be a Christian. And I asked the Lord to come to my heart and forgive me. And I felt like a lot of peace, and I felt like the Spirit kind of came inside of me and filled me. But then I never did anything about it. I never got back involved in church. I still had the same friends, still did the same things, still was struggling with the same things. So nothing changed at all. And then it wasn't until, and I think this is definitely absolutely 100% a God thing, but somehow my cousin invited me to the Shadow Day at Foothills. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know anyone at Foothills, never heard of it before. I had been homeschooled at that time in middle school. I was going to a charter school, so I was only going to school like 2 days a week. But I was like, yeah, well, I didn't really want to go there for high school, so I was like, why don't I try this whole Shadow Day thing? And I was like, free pizza for lunch, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I went there. I shadowed Garrett Campbell, which is super funny, and I think that was also a God thing, because he was literally like a god there. He was the coolest guy ever. I mean, he was the star football player, star soccer player. Everyone was like, "What's up, Garrett?" Like, "Oh, what's up, dude?" Like
with
everyone,
you, like the
with
shyest.
me. Yeah, so I get paired with him, and I'm like,
That's
okay,
funny.
this guy is like the shiz. He is everything that everyone wants to be, and so that really encouraged me. Like, this place is pretty cool, and he seems really nice, and I was like, this is like the high school experience that I really want. You know what I mean? Like, this is like, I want to go to school and I want to have fun. I want to have friends. And so I decided to go to Foothills for all the wrong reasons. It had nothing to do. I don't even think I knew that it was a Christian school, to be honest.
Wow.
In fact, I don't think I did until we went to chapel. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is a Christian school. I forgot. But anyway, I decided I wanted to go to Foothills. I started going to Foothills, and the only person I knew was my cousin who ended up going. And then I don't know if it was the first or second day, but I remember meeting you.
Yeah.
In your basketball shorts and your white Vans, walking up.
Yes, sir.
And came into sixth period computer class.
And Corey was wearing. Hold on.
What was I wearing? You're probably wrong, but
so I was Corey's best man, and for my speech, I hit on this. But you were wearing like Skechers tennis shoes, lame.
They weren't Skechers.
I'm talking, Corey.
Okay, they were tennis shoes.
Lame gym shorts and his O'Reilly T-shirt.
O'Reilly.
Bland. Oh, and a buzzed haircut.
Yep, completely buzzed. It was like a one.
He was like really stylish.
I was the worst.
Anyway,
I had nothing going for me, basically. I was just tall. But
you were really nice. I remember like, this kid looks goofy and nice. I'll talk to him.
Yeah.
And then I barged in all loud, I think.
Yeah, so you literally barged into the class.
Probably late.
And yeah, I think a little bit late. And I think it might have been the first day because I think you were just excited to be in high school.
Yeah.
And so the classroom's kind of shaped like a
horseshoe.
Like a horseshoe, like a U. And so you came into one of the door and you just went all the way around the class. So this like loud, short, obnoxious redhead kid walks in.
Whoa.
And
it's a dark brown, dude, not red.
Questionable. We'll see. Tell us what you think. Email us. So you start going around, and I'm like sort of towards the middle of the U, and then you get to me, and I'm like, who in the world is this kid? And you were like, oh, what's up? I'm Jeremy. Like, you're Corey, cool man. And
so funny.
And then I remember you like goofing off with Ryan and
getting in trouble.
Yeah, just getting in trouble.
Mrs. Ballas hated us, dude.
Yeah, we were the worst.
Well, we were the worst. You were great, but
yeah, I was okay. I was all right. And then, so that was a God thing, just because we met.
Oh, I was a God thing. Cool.
Yeah, no, God was the God thing. You were in the God thing. And then I remember, so like in the first month, they do like a retreat for the high school to get to everyone to know each other and stuff. And I remember thinking like, oh, like my cousin wasn't going to go. So I was like, who am I going to sit with? You know what I mean? It's like that classic, like, I don't know anyone. Who am I going to sit with? I'm going to look like a loser in the back alone. And for some reason, I mustered up the courage to ask you to sit with me.
Me?
Yeah. And for some reason, you said yes. I don't know why.
Yeah, why the heck did I say yes?
Dude, I literally don't know why, because you didn't know me.
Huh.
I was super stupid looking.
True. No arguments.
You had tons of friends already, and like you were the cool guy in all of our friends. And so, but for some reason, you said yes. And so we drove up on the bus to Pine Valley Christian Camp.
I don't remember that, by the way.
Really? Mm-hmm. I do. I remember because I was sweating balls the whole time, dude. I was like, oh, God, this is my one chance. Like, I have to make a friend. Please, God. And we made small talk, and I don't think you even...
Oh, I think I do remember that.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I remember, like, wanting you to be my friend. Like, thinking, I want this kid to be, like, my friend. I don't know why, but I felt that way.
That's what I mean. I think it's a God thing.
I was like,
100% it is, because... now we're good friends. And anyways, and then, so retreat was cool, whatever. Didn't, made some friends, whatever. Started getting more plugged in. And then I remember after retreat, you invited me to a small group.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, small group. Like, this is a part of the church, because Foothills was a school and a church.
Mm-hmm.
And I was introduced through the school. I didn't know about the church. And so then I came. And I'm kind of drying this out a little bit, but I remember the first night we were at Spencer's old house, and Jeremy Joyner, who's now a good friend, pantsed me down to the skin 14 times that night. I remember counting. Yeah. I tell you this and you don't remember every time.
Yeah, I have no idea.
He pantsed me 14 times.
That's
down
funny.
to the bone. And I don't know. I was wearing like these down to the skin. Basically everything was falling off. which was super, like, that was my first night. I didn't know anyone there.
Yeah.
It was
that's
so
kind of
scary.
jacked up.
Yeah. John was super mad at him. But apparently I had a good attitude about it. I thought it was funny.
I remember
I was just
John,
glad to be there.
I remember John being mad.
Yeah. I was just really glad to be there. And so then I started going to small group. You invited me to camp. I remember this is at winter camp. So now this is like halfway through freshman year of high school. That's when I really had my first like real encounter with the Lord, because we had gone the entire camp. And I like, I understood the messages. I grew up a Christian. I knew all of the verses, and like I was, I'm a generally smart person. So like I could remember all the verses, all the stories. I knew all the principles, all the lessons. But especially I remember worship. I just remember like that was also a new thing for me. My other church didn't like raise our hands. We didn't turn the lights down. We didn't like, really like sing and shout and stuff and move around and pray for each other. And so that was kind of strange. I remember I didn't get it at all. And the last night of camp, I fell asleep during the message completely. I was just like totally out. Didn't hear a single word. I think Mike Van Meter was speaking. And then we started worship, and I just remember being so desperate, like, God, I know that you're real, and I know that we've had something in the past, but like, why in the world can I not, feel your presence? Why in the world can I not like really know tangibly that you're real? And I just remember being like overwhelmed by the Holy Spirit and just like really worshiping and really like digging in. Like it was just like this eye-opening experience where I was like, okay, this is something I really need to like explore. And like God is trying to get a hold of me. He's, metaphorically really like knocking on my heart, but like I can just feel like God wants something to do with me. I remember thinking, if God is real, then he definitely loves me. He definitely wants something to do with me. I don't know what it is. And then, so I spent the next semester of school reading. I remember I read The Way of the Master by Ray Comfort, and I read a couple other books, and I remember reading my Bible a lot, and I would take notes I was like really like on fire for God before I like knew God. And then and this was like the pivotal moment where it was then Future Quest, which is an annual youth conference that Foothills holds with multiple churches. And Bill Wilson was one of the speakers. He's the pastor and founder of Metro Ministries in New York, right?
Quick, best impression, go.
Oh, no, I'm so bad at impressions. I'm not going to try. I'm not going to publicly embarrass myself like that. Oh, dude, who was it? It's who can do the best impression of him? Shane Thogmartin?
Yeah, and Ryan's pretty good too.
Ryan's
I
pretty
think
good,
Ryan
yeah.
does it, yeah. It's funny.
What's the thing that he can say? I feel like I have an impression, but it's just
I'm not gonna try.
Okay, never mind. We're not gonna go there. Sorry, people. But I remember he was talking about being hot or cold. It was Revelation 3:16 or 17, whatever the verse is. But he says that's where God is speaking to the church, and he says, "Because you are lukewarm, you're neither hot or cold, and will spit you out of my mouth." And the whole message, he was just talking about how being lukewarm is the worst. Like God literally wants you to either be against him or to be for him, to be all in or to be all out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm lukewarm. Like this is everything I'm experiencing right now. Like I'm really curious about God. I really want to be like, I really want to know God, but I haven't committed myself and I haven't really like led like a godly life. And so I was like, this is me. I am it. And I was just remember thinking like the whole message, like, what am I going to do? 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 And then he did his classic altar call where, he shouts.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. 3, 2. And then as soon as he said 1, I ran up to the front. And of course, there's like 1,000 kids also running up. So I only made it like halfway down.
Like literally 1,000 people.
Yeah, literally 1,000 people. So I only made it like halfway down the aisle in the sanctuary. And I just got on my knees and I just started bawling, crying. And I just remember like bawling, crying, confessing, repenting, like just telling God that I loved him and like I understood his plans for my life and that I wanted to live for him completely. And then I remember Spencer George was behind me, and I don't know if he was also up there for the altar call, but anyways, I turned around, I saw him, and I just like grabbed him and hugged him, and I think he was a little shocked by that, but after that, like I was just completely on fire for the Lord, and I was just like super into it, all in. It was and I think again this is a God thing, but then after that, sort of my entrance into ministry and furthering my relationship with the Lord was when we I think so. This is right when John Hoffman split off, and he was going to plant the Grove Church.
Mm-hmm.
And so Caleb was in our group, and he
Mhm.
was leading worship. And then it was kind of this big thing, like Caleb's leaving the group. You know, he's going to the Grove,
Mhm.
and he was our worship leader.
Oh yeah.
And
I
so,
remember this.
so we were needing a worship leader, and like it had never in a single ounce ever, like, ever even was even a thought, like, oh, like I should lead worship, because I had barely started learning guitar. I picked it up really quickly in 8th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and I played it for fun, and I really loved it, and I was pretty good. But it never even occurred to me, and I'd never sung before at all, because I knew, like, oh, I can't sing. And then as soon as after Caleb left, then, like, coincidentally, I was super bored because we were getting our house remodeled, and I just, like, tried singing. And I was like, oh, like, it's not too bad. And then coincidentally the next week, John came up to me at small group, and he was like, hey, would you ever consider leading worship? And I was like, what? What are you talking about? He's like, don't you play guitar? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, do you sing? And I was like, no. He's like, well, why don't you just give it a try? I was like, oh, maybe I'll think about it. And I think I maybe did it once. And then John asked me to lead worship for the small group leader retreat, which was like for all the small group leaders who like were the student leaders in the small groups.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and he was like, I really need someone. He was just basically like begging me. And for some reason I would like wanted to do everything for John. Sorry, John. But for some reason I said yes. And then he's like, yeah, we just need like 10 or 12 songs. I was like, 10 or I don't even know one song. What are you talking about? 10 or 12 songs.
That's funny.
So I led worship. Anyways, I can tell that the rest of that story later, but really that was the beginning of my journey with the Lord, of immediately like wasn't addicted to pornography anymore. Immediately, my image of myself changed a lot. Immediately, like I felt a lot of peace and relief. Like I remember like physically feeling like a weight lifted off of me from Future Quest. And then after that, it was a lot of, the same sort of stuff like you said, like I was playing basketball. I was much less talented than you were. I was also blind, which I later found out.
Still blind.
And now I wear contacts. But that sophomore year, after sophomore year, I decided to quit basketball. I wanted to become a small group leader and lead worship more, get more involved in ministry, started doing homeless ministry, started doing other things like, Ecclesia and Battle Cry, and like just kind of dove all in.
I remember all that.
Yeah, and so that was kind of all of high school. I mean, for both of us, we kind of did a lot of things hand in hand, where we were either leading worship together and joined the worship band, or we were doing some sort of ministry at school, or we were
small group.
Or at small group, yeah, exactly. And so the Lord, just taught me a lot, and that's really when I grew a lot in the Lord. I was like way into the Bible, way into reading a lot of books, and so I don't know if there's anything more interesting after high school. Like you said, a lot of college for me was just investing. I went to Grossmont for 2 years. Then I went to St. Diego Christian College. And that was totally a God thing, because I was planning on going to SDSU to go into accounting. And then like somehow I just like reconsidered SDC, won this crazy scholarship to go there for free, which is totally a God thing. Bless God for that. And then after I graduated college was really when a lot of that started to become, real.
It paid off.
Yeah, a lot of it
I didn't
paid
even
off.
talk about school for me. That's funny.
Yeah, I know. That's right, because you did school online during working full time.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't like an enjoyable thing for me. That's why I don't even think about it. I just did it, put my time in, got my degree, and now it's like done.
Yeah.
So,
well, we've been talking for a while. Why don't we talk a little bit about the future?
I just have a question I wanted to ask.
Oh, yeah.
Prompted my mind.
Yeah.
I want us both to answer, but what would you say is like thinking of the life you've lived so far? I know for us it's both limited, but what would you say is like one like major theme or one major thing that the Lord has taught you?
Like just overall in the last...
Or, like, I have an answer if you don't, you can think about it. But I was thinking to myself like
an overarching theme.
Yeah, like what is one thing the Lord's been like using your life to show you? And I asked that because so as I shared, like, working through some, fear and anxiety, when I got prayer at our church a few months ago for that, one of the guys said to me, he's like, he said, your whole life, the Lord, he has been, and he will continue using circumstances in your life to basically train you and help you to learn to fully depend on him. And he said, right now, and up to this point in your life, the Lord has been using this fear thing. And he said, he's using this to show you how to lean on him. And he said, but when you're 40, when you're 50, it might be the same thing, or it could be something completely different. And so I was thinking, okay, like, God, like, what is one thing, like, in my life so far, like you have showed me consistently? And so for me, my answer would be, I would say, simply following, like, the Lord's direction and the Lord's guidance and tug is the way to go. And it sounds super basic and, like, just simply put, but I just think of my life, like, really everything I'm doing right now in my life, like, even to this day, is like what I want to be doing. And I think the Lord has really guided me in where I'm at, and, like, there is no other way to live. Like, there is no other way that I would want to live my life. Simply doing things the way God wants me to do it, and walking with him is, like, so fulfilling. And so that, I feel like the Lord has taught me that, simply walk with him and follow his guidance.
Yeah, I do have an answer. I'm really glad you asked that, because I feel like the theme for me is, if I can tie them together, but one is sort of like, just walking in the way of the Lord and, like, just kind of like doing it right, quote unquote. But I think the overarching theme is having the favor of God. Like I said, like, I feel so incredibly blessed that I am where I am today. Very similarly, I'm exactly where I want to be, and God has all the desires of my heart that God has given me have, like, come true so thus far. One of the crazy things is, just with the favor of the Lord and just that his promises are true. For some reason, I always wanted to get married by the time I was 22. Actually, I wanted to get married when I was 22, specifically, because I figured out that was the time that I'd be done with college, and that I could, that was the perfect time to get married out of a full-time job. Well, I did. There are a lot of other things like that. Like, I always wanted to graduate college debt-free. I always wanted to start my business, which will become true in, one day. And also, for some reason, I also have this arbitrary goal to buy a house by the time I'm 25, which I'm so incredibly far away from right now, but I'm believing God in it. Like, and so I think, but anyways, the overarching theme for me is the word blessing, because I think that I got a new kind of definition, a new realization of what it means, and that a blessing is God's favor in your life coming into fruition because of your relationship with him in some way. And just in all the things that I trusted God with, all the things that I walked with God and obeyed him in, and all the things that I didn't do in my life. And I just had such an insane amount of favor from God in my life that, it's just incredible. So anyways, I think that's the overarching theme. Like, and part of that too is, like you were talking about with your fear and your anxiety, I think sort of that Achilles heel for me, the thing that I struggled with the most was, like, identity, or, like I said, kind of like self-esteem. Like, I didn't really know who I was. I was always really shy, kind of by default, because I was an introvert. But now I'm a much different person. Like, I love talking to people. I get exhausted talking to people after a certain point, but I'm not scared.
You can do it now.
Yeah, I can do it. Like, I enjoy it. I love it. It would always be scary, or I always feel like I was less of a person. Well, actually, I should say I always wanted to be someone else when I was younger. And so I think the Lord was just showing me, like, no, look, this is how I've made you to be. And now, because you follow my ways, I'm going to give you this favor in your life, and I'm going to make you into the person that I've created you to be. And now I feel like I'm more closely aligned to who that person is, and living that person out, So cool. Glad you asked.
Yeah. So I think our, like, last talking point would be some vision casting, like thinking about so where we're at today, and who we want to be, and kind of where we want to be, and what we want our lives to look like 5, 10 years down the road.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'm still thinking.
No,
I can go. I'll
start.
Yeah, you go ahead.
So we were kind of just talking before this, like, let's just talk about, so again, the idea of a testimony is that it's not just, the story of you coming to the Lord, but it's also your entire life, really, and the things that God is going to do through you in your life. And so for me, when I think about my life, I mean, I sort of think about it as like just getting started. And I guess the things that that the Lord has put on my heart to do and to achieve, I'll just kind of talk about that and like where I maybe see that fitting in my life. But I mean, some of the obvious sort of like table stakes things that that I see myself accomplishing or doing in the next 5 or 10 years is, buying a house, having kids. Monique and I have talked about having kids in the next like year or two, and we definitely want to have kids. We want to have multiple kids, definitely more than two, like 3 or 4 or 5 possibly. So starting to have kids. I think also by that time I would not be working a traditional job. I'd be either working my own business or doing freelance or some sort of combination of things and some sort of, indie entrepreneurship, role. And that's also, one thing that the Lord, I think, has put on my heart, and this discovery of not this discovery of myself, but the discovery of who God has made me to be is like out of nowhere. It was just like this crazy hunger and desire to start a business and to be in entrepreneurship and to, and not to like, I don't like the whole like be your own boss thing, but to have your own business, to be the man, to own it. And so within 5 years, I see myself doing that, starting that, being successful in that. I mean, if we're talking about long-term stuff, some of the desires that I have is to not retire when I'm 65. I'd like to retire much earlier than that. And by retire, I don't mean get a huge lump sum of money and then sit on it. Yeah, on a boat. I mean, like, working part-time or working and then taking other roles like in advisory or in mentorship or in freelance work. But retiring so that I can do other things. I can do other hobbies and ministries. I can do other, put my time in other places like youth venture or in even like leading worship. And I've also had this weird desire always to have some sort of role in pastoring or just in ministry in general, like, but as like a job. So I don't know what that means, whether it's like church planning or in advising or in counseling. I have no idea. But that's sort of one of the desires the Lord's given me. Cool. So yeah, it's so hard. The thing for me is that it's so hard to think about like, here's where I want to be in 5 years. Here's where I want to be in 6 years. Like, it's almost impossible to do that. So I almost feel like it's pointless to. But I think I know, like, here are the big things that we want to achieve. So those are a few for me.
Yeah, for me, it's hard to think, like, specifically what I want. I have, like, a general idea of what I picture my life to be like.
Yeah.
But I kind of have, like, this weird confidence and, like, faith almost that it's simply going to happen. I mean, I feel like it's already happened to this point. I think that it's the favor of God. Before I started high school, I envisioned what I wanted my life to be like, and like I shared, that senior year, I had that moment of realizing my life is everything I thought it would be, like hoped for, right? Yeah. And then kind of same thing, even like right now where I'm at, like post college, like whatever, like I'm doing the things that I want to do. I'm actually doing them sooner than I thought, which is weird. Yeah. So like it's happened to this point, like why would it not happen in the future, And so I kind of feel that way, which is like exciting. Yeah. But at the same time, we have to be, put in, plans and have action. So for me, I would say, along the same lines as you for the most part. I'm getting married in like 4 months, and so getting married obviously, and within I would say 3 to 4 years, I'd like to own a home and probably have kids in about 4 years or so, maybe a little sooner. One thing me and Connie both want, which is cool, I want to have a home that's open to people and that we take people in. When I was growing up in high school, we had a decent sized home, and so we would always have friends over any time. But we often had throughout high school, I had I think 3 friends that lived with us for first season. I had one friend, Jamal. He lived with us for about a year and a half and had his own room. And if you've seen The Blind Side,
That's literally
he
you
was
guys.
Big Mike and I was
Yeah.
SJ.
You're a tiny kid.
Take it easy, Corey. I have a big heart, dude.
That's true. Big heart.
So I really want that. I want a home that I can open up to people and not like make money off like having rent, just like to help people and to bless people.
Yeah.
So I really want that. And I really want to run a business. You know, we've talked about I just bought a business, and so I'm doing that, and it's so fun. It's only been about a month, but like I own and I run a small business. Like it's so fun, and so I kind of envision myself like owning multiple companies like down the road. That's kind of what I want to do. Like just own and run, and I don't really envision myself selling them. Like maybe, but I think I just want to like start and run like many companies is what I want to do. Yeah. And so I have no idea how that's going to look like. I feel like me starting this now is kind of like a step of faith. Like I felt really compelled to do this, and so we'll see how this one goes. And I think that they're all hopefully going to work out. I'm sure it's going to be hard, I know, but I imagine that the Lord will have his way and they'll be blessed. And so, yeah, just business wise, that's what I want. I don't ever really envision myself retiring, honestly. Like I'll slow down
conventionally.
Right. Yeah, but I think what I kind of you share, like you want to have the time to simply do the things you want to do. Yeah. Like I envision that for myself like early on. Like that's what I late 20s, early 30s, I want to be doing that, and then basically do that my whole life. Like still working, and I have companies that generate income, but I still
not be financially tied.
Yeah, and not be tied.
Should
there.
I have to do this? To pay
exactly.
The bills this month?
Right.
Yeah.
I want to position it in a way to where I can like live my life and not be tied to my time, and so that, and I would like to live in different states for a little while. I've always had this like dream and vision, like not long, but I really want to go live in like Seattle for like 3 months, right? Yeah. Or
we struggle with that too, Monique and I.
Yeah, live in the East Coast for a couple months, like just small chunks of time. But I've always wanted a job that gives me that ability, and now I do. So that's one thing I want to do, and one thing I also want to do is I really want to be generous with my resources and specifically like my money. Yeah. My money and my time. Like I want to help people and just like be generous, and like I don't know. I've been realizing the older I get like how much people matter. And I think when I was younger I was thinking about like me and like my possessions, and now it's like, well, that stuff is cool, but like what really matters, people matter, and who you know and how you treat them and how you love them, like that matters. So I want to help people with my money, my time, my resources, and whatever I can do, I want to help. And it's kind of funny, like actually starting this business, like I feel like the Lord's already testing me. So one thing me and Connie, my fiance, decided was, so we own the business that I own is an event rental company. So we rent out, tables and chairs and other stuff. And so it's physical labor, right? We deliver and set up these, these tables and whatnot. And so right now in the beginning, I work. So I do pay people to do shifts, but I work almost every shift with the guys to be out there with them. And so me and Connie talked about was, because we get tips. So we'll do a job and the manager will come like give us $100, whatever it is. And so it's decent money. And so we decided together that when we get tips, we're going to give it to the guys that are working with us. That was kind of like our decision. Even if we're working all day, in the hot sun, we're still going to give it to them because these guys obviously need the money more. And so, so like literally the first day we talked about that, right? It was a day where me and her did this setup shift for one of our jobs. And so for us, like you set up early morning, you pick up that same day late at night. And so me and Connie set it up, and then we left. And then that night I went back with another coworker. Connie didn't come, but I went with someone else. And sure enough, at the end of the job, the lady comes up and hands $100 to his name, it was Brian Blayfield. He was working with me, and gives it to Brian. And Brian's like, "Oh, like that's my boss. Like I'll give it to him." So Brian comes and gives it to me, and I just like felt like, gosh. And I was like, "Nah, bro, like you keep it." And he was like shocked, and I was like, "He's like, no, like I've only worked a couple hours, like blah blah blah." And I was like, "No, like I want to help you." And so he was like, really cool. So like, and it was a cool moment. Like it was hard, like because I had done both shifts. He only worked a few hours, but I really felt like this is the beginning of helping people, and this is so small. $100, like that's really small right now. Right. Like I want to be like thousands, if not millions one day, right? And so it's like, it was cool to like see that, but it had a huge impact on him. And anyway, that's my goal, to help people. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And
I'll just add one more thing. Also, I mean, with this podcast and with Cultivate and Keep in general, with the website and with the community, all the other things we're going to produce, like courses and guides and, whatever resources we do, whoever we partner with. But I really want to, so, for my job now, I write a lot. I write blogs, and I work for a tech startup, and basically I do all of our content that generates leads for us and whatever, all that boring stuff. So I write a lot. I think this month I've written about 30,000 words already.
Jeez.
But even like just this year, I've been writing a lot.
It's the 11th of September. Holy cow.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, like, rolling
Within
30 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not the last 11 days. That'd be like 1 week of work. But I really want to write books. Like I really want to write like a couple books, like, books about what it means to be a man, books about Christianity, books about business. But I love the idea of like, you write a book and like it's a book forever. You know what I mean? Like cool. It's out there forever. Whether we're co-writing or whether I'm writing my own or whatever it is.
It's a really cool idea.
I just love the idea of, your dad wrote a book, and I've known other people have written books, but like I feel like that's maybe like a newer desire that the Lord's put in my heart and something that I want to do. Is write some books.
That's cool.
So,
yeah, that'd be sweet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's wrap this one up. We got more to record. So thanks for listening. We'd love to hear.
Wait, Corey, I have one more thing.
Oh, what?
I had this idea today, and I was like, I'm not going to do it. I think,
okay.
But I think I'm going to do it.
Hit me.
Will you be my best man, Corey, for my wedding?
Oh,
Woo!
no!
Got him. He's shocked.
Are you serious?
I wish I had a camera right now.
Oh, well, yes, of course.
Yes.
No way.
Yeah, that's good, huh?
Dude, okay, I have so much responsibility.
Yeah, you do.
This is like the weight of the world on me right now.
Yeah. Corey Haynes,
dude,
my best man.
Shake my hand right now.
Dude. That was pretty killer, huh?
Dude, that's pretty killer.
That was cool.
That was freaking clutch.
I had the idea, and I was like, Connie, should I ask him on the podcast? And she was like, yeah, that's really cool.
Dude.
And then earlier we talked about it, I came up, and I was like, I don't want to say it. I like felt nervous, and then I was like, you know what? I need to do it.
Dude, that's amazing. I am so honored.
Cool.
I promise that I will be the best man there has ever
been.
The
bestest minch.
The bestest minch.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the bestest minch. Yes. Dude, I'm so honored.
And it's recorded, too.
On the air. Okay.
He's speechless.
I am speechless. I don't know. You close us out.
Yeah. Anyway, let us know how you liked this episode. Feel free to give us a rating. Check us out on cultivateandkeep.com. If you have any questions, you can email us at cultivateandkeep.com.
Hey.
Corey, you corrected me like I do to you.
Oh, so just to make sure, it's US at symbol cultivateandkeep.com.
Us at cultivate.
Yes, you can email us at cultivateandkeep.com.
All right, checking out. That's it.
All right, deuces.
Bye.